This is the Eddie Craig traffic stop script for non-commercial travelers. Eddie Craig has made videos, which I'll show you in a moment, on the traffic stop script. He has also made additional videos with additional script information, which I have included here. So this is, as far as I know, comprehensive script. Before we look at that, this is not something that will apply to you if you are a commercial driver. So if you're engaged in commerce on the roadways, such as delivering furniture or produce, or if you are a pizza delivery man or a taxi driver, then you are engaged in commerce and you need to be licensed and have registration and forced insurance, etc. This is for people who travel in their cars, which is most people on the planet. So before I get into it, I'm going to show you here the videos that I highly recommend you watch. Yes, this is almost 2.5 hours long. This is Eddie Craig, but he goes over a lot of very important information, and he does get into the script as well. There is a shorter version right here, which is just the script itself. So if you want to watch this, I would recommend it. Myself, I have the script. I keep it in my car printed as well, but I do have most of it memorized. The thing about it is, you don't have to memorize this word for word, so don't feel intimidated or overwhelmed. You're not going to be having to recite this in front of a camera like an actor or something. This is just, you need to memorize the gist of each response. Now, when he goes through the script here, he is kind of laying it out as if he knows, or you'll know, exactly what the officer is going to say, and then this is how you respond next. You're not going to know that in a real life situation. The officer is not going to say something that you're expecting him to say so that you have your response ready. It doesn't work that way. So the script that I've created is not chronological, more or less. It is, but you just have to memorize each response so you know how to respond when he does say the things that trigger that necessary response. So I'm sure you understand that. Before we go away from this video right here, just listen to this.
So one of my major rules is there's 3 parts to this. You shut up, you keep shutting up, and when you've done that, you shut up some more.
He's talking about, what do you say to cops when they pull you over? You don't, other than the script. Stick to the script. Don't offer any additional information, and you'll be fine. This is how you talk to police. Don't. This is the 5th Amendment. Nor shall any person be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Anything you say to a police officer can be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to shut up. So, let's begin. So, when a traveler gets pulled over for an alleged commercial traffic infraction, and by the way, if you're a criminal on the run from a bank heist, you're on your own. Turn off this video now and forget about it. So, always have a recording device and film everything. Most cell phones are also cameras. Learn how to get that video running quickly as possible so that when you are pulled over, you turn it on and you start recording immediately. You might even want to have a secondary camera in your car attached somewhere that films everything. So, before we get to the script, there's just some things here I want you to understand. A, when you see the lights come on behind you, and as you are pulling over, roll your windows down to air out your car, then roll them back up as soon as you pull over. Now, some people do smoke pot in their cars. or maybe it smells like booze in there, or maybe it smells like something that could be interpreted as some kind of a drug. Just air the car out. It's a good idea. B, right off the bat, when you are pulled over, you are under arrest. Oh, by the way, have a recording device and film everything. I just mentioned it again because it is very important. The act of being stopped from pursuing your life, liberty, and happiness is an arrest. The cop will not tell you you are under arrest, and he will not read you your Miranda rights, because once you know you have been arrested, most people won't volunteer the information he can manipulate to accuse you of a crime. When he fails to read you your Miranda rights, as soon as he approaches your window, he is already committing a crime himself, pursuant to People versus Chacon, which says, once an investigating officer has probable cause to believe that the person confronted has committed an offense, the officer cannot be expected to permit the suspect to leave his presence. At that point, interrogation becomes custodial, and the suspect must be warned of his rights. Now, this applies even if you aren't committing a crime, because if he pulls you over for anything having to do with traffic, you are not committing a crime. You are in violation of one of their statutes, codes, and regulations, which is not an offense that they can throw you in jail for, but they do. The only crime you can commit is if you hurt someone else, injure someone, murder someone, obviously, steal from them, or damage their property. There has to be a flesh and blood victim for there to be an actual crime, a corpus delicti. C, when you come to a stop, lock all your doors and only crack your window about 2 inches. Do not open any other windows. This prevents a cross breeze which the officer can use to say he smells pot or booze. And that is what they'll do if you don't comply. They need to get you out of your car because they need to fill the prisons. They need to write you tickets so that you pay and pay and pay, which is just extortion. D, do not answer any of his questions. I just mentioned that earlier. If he's friendly, do not be duped and engage in chit-chat. He is there to extort you. He has already broken his oath of office pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 and 3 of the Constitution, and he has illegally detained you without Mirandizing you. He's there to rob you, literally. He is a thug displaying a deadly weapon on his hip, and he can lawfully and under threat of violence and murder force you to comply to his every whim. When a cop pulls over a traveler who has not committed any crimes, he is immediately liable for damages pursuant to all these codes here. 18 U.S. Code 241, Conspiracy Against Rights, U.S. Code 1983, Civil Action for Deprivation of Rights, U.S. Code 1985, Conspiracy to Interfere with Civil Rights, U.S. Code 1986, Action for Neglect to Prevent, 18 U.S. Code 2384, Seditious Conspiracy, 18 U.S. Code 1590, Trafficking with respect to peonage, slavery, involuntary servitude, or forced labor, 28 U.S. Code 1343, Civil Rights and Elective Franchise, 18 U.S.C. 1581, Peonage, Obstructing Enforcement Title, 18 U.S. Code 1001, False Statements and Concealment. So here is the script. First of all, never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. You have to understand what you are asking. Don't just recite from memory what you should say. Understand it. And it is best to have these points memorized so you look like you know what you are doing. You want the officer to understand that you know your rights and you comprehend what you are standing for, and not that you are just reading off a piece of paper. They're not going to take you seriously. But of course, it still works to be reading if you have to. You might create a small reminder list to keep visible in your car. Something shaped like a bookmark with little images like this. And we'll get into this in a minute. The camera can mean the part where you say to him, are you recording this confrontation? Are you recording this incident? The exclamation point can trigger your memory to say, "Officer, is there an emergency that I can help you with?" The scale here with two different colors could be to remind you to ask him if you have violated, or if he's stopping you for a criminal offense or a civil offense. And we'll get into that in a second. So this is a way to create little reminders to trigger your memory, which actually they just did for me, because I'm not reading what I just said about each of these icons. So, the script. He pulls you over, you locked your doors, your window's down a crack, and he comes up to your window, and he's automatically going to ask you for your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. But you say, "Officer, could I get your name and badge number, please?" You might also want to ask him to fill out your notice of inquiry and a report of detainment, which is this. I keep this in my car on a clipboard. Most likely he'll say, "No, I'm not filling out anything," because he thinks he's above the law and he thinks that he is God himself. So this is a great form. I have heard that an officer actually did fill this out once, and when it came clear to the court system that he did so, the case was completely thrown out. So this questionnaire asks things, by the way, this must be filled out by any public servant before he can ask the citizen any question. And I know there's a lot of controversy about the word citizen, but he's assuming you're a citizen, so you can use this against him. This is authorized by federal law, including the Privacy Act 5 U.S.C. 552A, etc. So you want his name, badge number, jurisdiction. Excuse me. Peace officer, yes or no? Is he a peace officer? Is he on his oath today, yes or no? Location of stop. Do you believe that this stop is related to a driver or motor vehicle operating in commercial commerce, yes or no? Please list any passengers, goods, merchandise. So these are commercial things. So if he can't list any, then he has no proof that you're a commercial driver. So here's information on the car. I like this part. Victims involved. That would be you, behind the wheel. He fills this out, then he's already calling you a victim. So, property damage, yes, no, physical harm. And he signs under oath. That's the bottom there. Notice to public servant officer. In the event you elect to not fill this form, you will accept or give your unconditional consent for a levy of your public bonds of no more than $100,000 per 5 minutes that I am detained by you or all other present officers. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. Public servant officer refusal, yes or no. So if he says, "I'm not filling out your form," you could ask him to just read this part on the bottom, or you could read it to him. And if he says he's refusing to fill out your form, then you circle no and make sure he sees you circle no, and that he's now liable for a levy of his public bonds of no more than $100,000 per 5 minutes. Now you're going to have to gauge how this officer is acting, if he's one of those possibly good cops, or if he seems like one of those hardcore power trippers who just want to control you and overrule you and make you his little slave. So you always have to, when you're dealing with being pulled over and a police officer approaching you, when you use this script to determine his demeanor. So let's continue. After you ask him about getting his name and badge number, you have it on your recording. If you're not recording, then you jot it down on a notepad. Always have a notepad next to you. Officer, are you recording, and is your video and audio equipment properly working? You want to know that he's recording as well as you are. And you don't have to hide that you're recording. You have the legal right to record a public servant. There's all kinds of conspiracy and misinformation about that, but the fact is you can record the officer. Next, Officer, what is your emergency? Is there something I can assist you with? You're saying this because you don't want to assume that you have done anything wrong. You're totally, completely innocent of any crime. And he has just illegally arrested you. So why did he stop you? Does he need some help? Officer, and you want to say his officer and badge number as much as you can on your recording, because it confirms and verifies who you're speaking with. And there can never be any question who you're talking to. Can any of the information you are demanding from me be used against me in a court of law or be used to incriminate me in any way? Let me just fix that. Oops. This is basically telling him that you are aware that he should have already read you your Miranda rights. So you're right here letting him know that you know what the hell's going on. So if the officer says yes, or simply continues asking you for driver's license and registration and proof of insurance, which is the same as saying you must comply and give him what he asks for, say this. And by the way, he will just keep asking you for the same thing over and over and over again, most likely. Officer Damien, badge number 666, are you asserting that a statute can compel me to waive a fundamental protected right to comply with your demand? And that's what he's doing. By the way, you can reword this however you want. You can say constitutionally protected right. And you can say that because they are supposed to have an oath to the Constitution. You might not. You probably don't have an oath to the Constitution, which, by the way, they have completely bastardized. Next, Officer Damien, badge number 666, are you stopping me for a civil infraction or an alleged criminal offense? So this is important. This is a new one that Eddie Craig came up with on a different video than the ones I showed you, and I'm incorporating it here. If the police officer says criminal, and he cites something from the traffic code, then you've got him for incompetence. He doesn't know that the law defines the allegation he made is a civil infraction. He illegally stopped you without a warrant for a civil infraction, which means he didn't have probable cause or reasonable suspicion, because those only attach to crimes. This is all about choosing a foundation you can build on to get them to admit certain things, rather than ask him about probable cause, which he will say he has. First, determine whether or not he understands how probable cause is obtained. In other words, any citation for a traffic violation is a civil infraction, not a crime. If he says he has stopped you for a crime, then he must have probable cause for the crime you committed, are committing, or are about to commit. This is how you trap him. If he says he stopped you for a crime, say, Officer Smith, badge number 184, what facts or information are you alleging gave you probable cause to stop and accost me? Officer Smith, badge number 829, do you have a properly signed and issued warrant to search me or my property? If he says he has a warrant, ask to see it. If he has a warrant, he has to furnish it within a reasonable amount of time after he throws you in a cage, which they usually do without taking you before a magistrate first, which is lawfully required. If there is no warrant for your arrest, continue. So, Officer so-and-so, badge number, whatever, for the record, I am not operating in a for-hire capacity by being engaged in any form of transportation or commercial use of the highways. Officer Smith, badge number 123, please acknowledge that you have been so informed. Keep repeating this question until he answers. It's what they do to you. This is important because he'll keep you there even though he has no reason to do so, as he fishes for something to charge you with. So this is definitely one you want to remember. For the record, I'm not operating in a for-hire capacity by being engaged or by engaging in any form of transportation or commercial use of the highways. Some people say go right to this one as soon as he comes up to your car. Officer Smith, badge number 123, am I under custodial arrest? If I'm not under custodial arrest, am I free to go? They don't want you to think you're under arrest. So if they have to admit that you're not under arrest, then obviously you're free to go. The trick here is that if he says you are under arrest, then he has to read you your Miranda rights. And if he does that, then he's not going to get anything out of you at all. So he might as well just let you go. They will also try to trick you into thinking that it's something less serious, like an investigative detention. There is no such thing. You're under arrest. Being under arrest is being stopped from doing what you were doing. You're living your life, and suddenly this person who thinks he has authority over you stops you from doing that. You're under arrest. Don't be tricked into thinking that he's just investigating something. So go ahead and investigate it. Leave me out of it. I'm innocent. I've not committed any crimes. So if he continues, and when he's asking you questions, you're not answering his questions. So when he asks you questions, just continue with your script. Or ask him a question, like this one. Officer Smith, badge number 123, what articulable probable cause leads you to believe that I have committed a crime, am committing a crime, or am about to commit a crime that authorizes you to stop and detain or arrest me? So to simplify it, you could take off this part at the end here. This whole part here, if you want to just say the rest. So you use your judgment. But you want to use terms like articulable probable cause, because then you sound like you know what you're talking about. So this gets wordy, so you can use, you can redo this or use some of it, get the gist of it yourself. It's up to you. But this is from Eddie Craig. For the record, Officer Smith, badge number 123, in order to protect my rights and not waive any by error or accident, I wish to clarify my legal understanding of the situation. You said I'm not free to go, so I must conclude that I am under an arrest and not simply under an investigative detention. Therefore, I'm invoking all of my fundamentally protected rights, including my right to remain silent and my right to assistance of counsel. From this point forward, I do not consent to providing you with any information or documents that can be used against me in a court of law or possibly incriminate me. So please do not ask me to produce anything and give it to you. From this point forward, please do not ask me to answer any questions or perform any tests relating to any matter whatsoever without my attorney present. Side note, don't ever get an attorney in a traffic court, and do not represent yourself. Represent yourself. You are there by special appearance sui juris, that is by one's own right, or just say, I'm here today prosecuting this case. Never agree that you are representing yourself, because you would be representing your commercial straw man, the legal name, the all caps name. This is off topic here. This has to do with the court systems, but that's what that is all about. You don't represent yourself in court. And you certainly don't want an attorney whose primary purpose is to serve the courts, to be representing you. So the officer will still be asking questions, asking you for a license, blah, blah, blah. You just say, Officer Smith, badge number 183, do you intend to harm, injure, or punish me by any method of assault, arrest, and or incarceration because I have invoked my fundamental constitutionally protected rights? The officer may now be saying that the law requires you to produce documents. This is intimidation. Invoking your fundamental rights cannot be converted into a crime. Remember that. So if they charge you falsely for obstruction, if he says, I'm going to have to charge you for obstruction, you get to sue their pants off because what they just did was punish you for invoking your rights. And you say to him, for the record, Officer Damien, badge number 666, no law is valid if it requires me in any way to waive any unalienable protected rights in order to exercise any other right or alleged privilege. And no law can convert the free exercise of any right into a crime. I have repeatedly informed you that I choose not to waive any of my fundamental, or you could say constitutionally, protected rights. So I ask you once again, Officer Damien, badge number 666, do you intend to harm, injure, steal my property, or otherwise punish me for invoking my fundamental, constitutionally protected rights? So, again, have these things memorized so you know how to respond. So if this officer, and certainly by now, he will be getting very agitated if it's gone this far. You'll just know. So you might want to say this next part whenever he starts to get like this. Officer Damien, badge number 666, due to your attitude, demeanor, and your continuous threats to falsify charges and commit acts of violence against me and my property while displaying a deadly weapon, I feel physically threatened and in fear for my life. I demand that you cease and desist and that you get a supervisor here immediately. I do not consent to any of your actions, the use of force against me or my property, or to being forced to exit my car for any purpose, especially so that you may attempt to steal my property and or assault, injure, or kill me. This is telling the officer exactly what you expect him to do, and it is now a part of the official record. You'll be showing that all you did was invoke your rights, and all he could do was threaten you with violence. By the way, well, that's not right. This officer is your servant, so you can demand of him what you want. The problem we have in America, and actually in the world, is this mass hallucination that these people have authority over us, and they don't. They have zero authority over you. Saying this part here, that you are worried that he's going to commit acts of violence against you and try to steal your property, is a great thing to memorize for sure, because this could prevent that from happening. He knows you're recording, he's also recording, and you've just said you expect him to do these things, so he's more inclined now not to do them. So he'll continue to badger you, question you, etc. Or rather, if he does, you say, Officer Damien, badge number 666, you are fully aware that I have already invoked my right to remain silent and my right to assistance to counsel. Do you intend to continue in your unlawful efforts to violate my rights? So you've already told him earlier that you are going to stand on your right to remain silent. That doesn't mean you don't have to talk anymore. That means you don't have to tell him anything. That's what the silence means. It doesn't mean don't say one more word. It just means do not answer any of his questions. That's what being silent is. So just keep repeating this like a skipping record. Invoke your rights and stand on your rights. Officer Damien, badge number 666, it is my belief that the information you were demanding may possibly be used against me in a court of law or in an attempt to incriminate me. And if that is so, then upon the advice of legal counsel, I must respectfully decline to provide you with any information or evidence that possibly can or would be used against me for those purposes. So you just said, then upon the advice of counsel. This doesn't mean that you just made a phone call or your friend's in the back seat and he's your lawyer or whatever. This just means that you're telling him that you already know this is advice from legal counsel, and you're respectfully declining to provide him with any information that can be used against you. You have the right not to provide anything to them, so don't. let's see. That is what this is already that I showed you. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land of naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Of course, because you can just murder anybody you want if you're told to by the politicians. That's what war is. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice, but in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Stand on your rights and keep standing on your rights. Officer Damien, badge number 666, I am asking you again, do you intend to continue to deny me my rights and to falsely imprison me, or am I free to go? Keep repeating this. Keep asking him, am I under arrest? Or if he's already said you are, or if he said you're illegally, or you're under investigative detention, have you made it clear to him that you are actually under arrest? Keep repeating this. Am I free to go? So, if the officer then tries to get you out of your car with false allegations, such as saying he smells marijuana, immediately say, this is Eddie Craig's advice, you have to say this right away. Officer Damien, badge number 666, your statement is patently false and an outright lie. Are you now trying to fabricate probable cause by making false statements into the record and false allegations against me? You can simplify this on your own. This is an alternative response that I found somewhere, and I can't remember where I got it, but you could combine the two or just use one or the other. I object. So when he says he smells pot, you say immediately, I object, Officer Smith, badge number 184, due to your falsified statement pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 1001, false statements and concealment. I demand that you cease and desist from any further actions of federal crimes of conspiracy against my unalienable, constitutionally secured liberty, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 and 3 of the Supreme Law of the land. And I also demand that you uphold your fiduciary duty as a peace officer to the public by allowing me to exercise and enjoy my natural liberty to travel the land which the Supreme Court ruled is constitutionally protected pursuant to Shapiro versus Thompson. Boy, if you can remember this one word for word, he's going to be very impressed. Of course, he won't tell you that. So that is the script. So like I said, if you create some kind of little list of icons for each point to remind you what they mean, or even just 2 or 3 words, a list of 2 or 3 words each line to remind you of your response. They're not going to come in order like I've shown you here. You have to know how to respond to whatever the officer says. That said, if he's asking questions, don't answer his questions. Where are you going? What are you up to today? Have you got any drugs in your car? Anything he asks you, do not answer him. Nothing. Trust me, there's videos where they twist and contort every benign thing you say to be used against you, and they do it all the time. So it has to be a rule, without exception, that you do not answer his questions. Do you live around here? That sounds pretty benign, doesn't it? But if you say, yes, I do, well, in his mind, he might be thinking, well, there's sure a lot of criminals in this area or a lot of drug dealing going on in this area. This guy's probably one of them. You never know. They do anything they can because they need money. They need lots of money because they're hiring all these criminals to run around trying to get more money because they have to pay them. It's a vicious little circle, isn't it? Reminds me of the war on drugs. Abolish the war on drugs and you'll see a much better society and much less crime and much less murder. And you'll also see a lot of officers rightfully losing their jobs because we don't need them all out there. So, here's some more things I want to go over. This is a good thing to know. Your car, automobile, is a consumer good. Under the UCC 9-102A definition 23, consumer goods means goods that are used or bought for use primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. So are they going to require you to register your microwave oven and your sofa next? This is reality. Your car is a consumer good. It is for you, for your family, for your pursuit of your life, liberty, and happiness. It is unregulable, meaning they cannot tax you to own it, any more than they can tax land you own. That's another story altogether. So if you're not a commercial driver, you are neither a driver nor are you operating a motor vehicle. These are commercial terminologies. Okay? This is how they trick you. You are not a driver. You are a traveler. Do not use the word operating. Your car is not a motor vehicle. It might be a motorized vehicle. Whoops, motorized vehicle. You could say that because it is a vehicle and it is motorized, but I would avoid it altogether. If the officer wants you to sign his debt instrument, his ticket, you can tell him you do not want to enter into contract with him and you are not signing anything. Note, a flesh and blood man or woman does not write a signature. That is what the straw man does. You, the flesh and blood man or woman, gives an autograph. So don't say, I'll give you my signature. You always use the word autograph. Not that you really need to say either one. If the officer persists, is acting violent, or for any reason you are afraid for your life and safety, and that you won't have to worry about your life or safety if you just sign his debt instrument, his ticket, then give your autograph under duress like this. The underlining is for emphasis only. VC John Doe, your name rather, or the ellipsis, 3 dots, John Doe. This means that there are other things you would like to say, but you have not been able to say them. Or you can sign like this, John Doe, under protest / with prejudice / with acceptance / of necessity, or all of the above. Ellipsis, VC, Mr. John, your name, and then in parentheses, or not, under duress, with prejudice, without acceptance, of necessity. So, this information about how to sign is on this site, which I will link in the description box. The VC stands for, sorry, let me find it here. Vis compulsiva. It's Latin, and it means a compulsive force exerted by menace or terror to compel another to do an act against their will. So you sign your name like this, VC, and then your name, always in upper and lower case, never capitals. Means that you're under duress, means that you're forced to, means that you would not otherwise sign your name, which means it is thrown out. They can't do anything against you. You aren't obligated to comply to the contract you just filled out because you're obviously being forced to sign it, or to give your autograph, I should say. So like I just said, never all caps. Oh, here it is right here. I forgot I put it there. Compulsive force. So duress, unlawful pressure exerted upon a person to coerce that person to perform an act that he or she ordinarily would not perform. And here's another one I found. Actus, me invito, factus non est mus actus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that all correctly. This is from Bouvier's Log Dictionary. An act done by me against my will is not my act. So I wanted to share with you, I'm not going to play it, But if you want to see how the propaganda machine works in the world, how they condition impressionable minds to believe that they are obligated to just bow down to any police officer. I caught this last night on Bates Motel on Netflix. I don't watch TV. I only watch a movie on Netflix. Don't watch TV. Do not get yourself brainwashed. You go to this episode here, the one with Rihanna in it. It's called Dreams Die First. And this is right about the 29-minute mark. She gets pulled over by a cop. I'm not going to play it. I'll get a copyright strike. And she already has her license in her hand when he's approaching her car. She didn't break any laws. She didn't even run a red light or anything at all. He's just pulling her over because, as it is, she has a coat hanging out the back of her trunk blocking her commercial license plate, and she's not even a commercial driver. And she's, of course, answering his questions, complying with him, doing anything he wants to do. And when you're awake in the world and you know what the hell's going on, these are the kinds of things that make it so difficult to enjoy a show. When you see this kind of nonsensical propaganda in any TV show, you will see 99.5% of the time when a cop comes up to somebody, they say and do anything they want. And it's absolutely preposterous. So go check that out. You'll find it in all kinds of other movies. And of course, because I'm awesome, I have here for you the Eddie Craig traffic script on document that is public for anyone, so you can copy it, copy it into your own document and have it to study and use in your car. I have the one I showed you online with the additional notes, and I also have the one, or I also made a copy of it without all the notes, that is just the script. Okay, there are a few little notes, but not all the other stuff that I did for the video. Also here for you, and I will link to everything below my video, is the form that I keep in my car that you might want to keep in yours as well. Doesn't hurt to ask him, "Officer, would you mind filling out my notice of inquiry and report of detainment?" You can print this, put it in your car. Another thing that I just realized I think you should see is this letter. There's page 1 of 2, and over here, cut off by the video, is 2 of 2. So it's a 2-page letter by Ralph Milstead. Some of you have already seen this, from 1985. He is the director of the Department of Public Safety, writing to the Arizona State Senator Wayne Stump. It has come to my attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all of their contracts with the United States federal government, the state of Arizona, in each of the political subdivisions, establishing themselves as freemen under the organic national constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. Consequently, they may be driving without auto registration, driver's license, or any other evidence of contract. Because many law enforcement personnel may be unaware of the contractual nature of auto registration and driver's licenses. You see here, everybody, your driver's license is a contract. And what happens when there's no meeting of the minds on a contract? If you are not fully cognizant of the content of a contract, especially if it's depriving you of rights, what happens to that contract? It is null and void. Your driver's license is right now in your wallet, in your pocket, in your car, null and void, pointless, bookmark. Use it as a bookmark. Then it becomes purposeful if you are not a commercial driver. It is conceivable that this situation may lead to confrontation between these individuals and law enforcement personnel. I urge you to inform yourself and your personnel about this matter as soon as possible. If you'd like to be briefed by someone knowledgeable on this subject, please contact me. In the meantime, inasmuch as this procedure is entirely appropriate when properly carried out, I would like to be personally notified of every such instance of confrontation in order that the persons involved and the public officials involved may be apprised of the correct procedure and the appropriateness of their actions on the part of each concern. He gives his phone number and says that he's requesting to be notified of the names and incidents along with addresses and phone numbers of participants of any such confrontations arising from the exercise of a person's freeman status in order to evaluate the outcome or properly rescinded contracts. You can properly rescind your contracts. A lot of people are actually doing this. Page 2 of the letter. I don't know if there's anything on here. Oh, it's been notarized. So anyway, so I will link to each of these things that I showed you under the description box. And I thank you for your time and good luck. If you have additional information or suggestions that would be good in a traffic stop situation, please leave comments under the video. Take care, everyone.